Hi guys, welcome. My name is Amanda. For those of you that are new to the channel, for those of you who've been here before, welcome back again, and to friends and family, g'day. So I've been very busy and I have been curing some pork bellies to make double maple bacon, which is being smoked, as well as making Kabana from scratch. So if those two things are something that interests you, then stay tuned because that's what I'll be doing, going through the process as best I can, step by step. There was a few steps I didn't film, but I've tried to add in the audio for you at least, but you can have a look at it. So this here is the Kabana. All done. This is some of the Kabana, I should say. It didn't manage to survive this long. It has been eaten. So this is Kabana with cheese, as you can see by the little bits of cheese in amongst the Kabana. So these have been smoked in the smoker, and bacon, well, yeah, we have some bacon left. 3.5 kilos of smoked fresh bacon. Pretty good. So this is double maple smoked bacon that was made from pork belly, and I'll take you through the steps on how to do this as well. Very simply done at home with just a few simple steps basically, and in the refrigerator for most of the time actually. So it's basically one day to do the pair of these. So if you want to see how to do that, we'll start off with the Kabana making and then move on to the bacon. Alrighty, see you soon. Alrighty, we're going to start off by making our cheese Kabana, and then we are going to make our double maple smoked bacon. And we're going to make this really simply. I have already prepared the mince beforehand. So this is a shoulder pork that I've minced up with my mincer into the coarsest grind that I can use. You can buy minced pork and minced beef, and if you're even lucky enough to go to a butcher and ask them to grind it at a really coarse grind for you, that would be even better. But I've ground this the day before, put it into the freezer, and have it ready to make our Kabana as well as sausages later as well. So for Kabana, I'll do a 1 kilo batch to show you how to do it, and then I will continue to do the rest of my sausages. So 20 to 30% fat is what you're aiming for, 75% pork, and 25% beef is the mix that I've always used when making Kabana, and it's what I have in my original recipe from about 20 years ago. So it's quite an older recipe that I follow, and it's pretty simple. 1 kilo of meat in total, and to that we will then add our cure, which in this case is going to be sodium nitrite. Sodium nitrite you can purchase as cure number 1, and cure number 1 is used for sausage making, for salamis, or any of the meats that may be cured outside of the safe temperature ranges, like a refrigerator, for example. So if your meat is going to be between the temperature of a refrigerator and below 65 degrees for more than 2 hours, you should be using sodium nitrite, or at least a natural substitute, which could be celery juice as an option. But we're not doing the natural version, we're doing the quick version that is easy to make for most people. So cure number 1, to 1 kilo of meat, you would need 2 grams. And I make sure that I get my exact 2 grams using a really good set of scales. So you will need a really good set of scales. You can buy pre-made cure mixes, but most of them will still suggest you adding nitrite to that as well. So I'll be making my blend up the same way I always make it with my spices. But again, you can buy pre-made spice blends. I think you can get a Kabana or a Kransky. I'm not sure if you can get a Kabana. I've not seen a Kabana before, but you possibly could. I just make my own. So in my bowl, I have salt, I have white pepper, I have caraway seeds, I have cumin, I have celery seed that's been ground up as well. I have fresh celery that's been dried from the garden, and that's also been ground up. I've got sweet paprika, and I also have some other seed. Is it cumin? Coriander. I will put a recipe, but everybody makes their own blends, but I'll put a base recipe. Caraway seeds is a general ingredient that you will find in most Kabana recipes, whether they be original or vintage recipes as well. To that, I just need to add it to the mince. It's pretty simple. But because we've added sodium nitrite needs 24 hours to do its thing. And its thing is to change the structure of the meat, the protein it works on. It makes the meat pink as well. And like I said, it protects us from botulism when we are handling meat that potentially could be out on a charcuterie board for a length of time outside of the refrigerated time temperatures as well. So this mince is -2 degrees. It's come out of the freezer. It is cold. The reason it's so cold is because I'm going to be remincing it through the mincer, and it's easier to do that without getting the fat caught through the mincing guards when it's frozen. So as cold as possible when you're making the sausages is best, and especially when it comes to putting them into the casings, it also is good to have a really cold product. But I simply mix the spices through as best I can, coating as much of the meat on the outside as I can before I will run it through our mincer again. Back on the same wide guard. I'm not reducing the size of the Kabana mince that I'm making. I will be managing it with hand, massaging it through afterwards and adding some water to it as well, and turning the mince into the texture of sausage mince, which is much tackier and broken up all of those protein chains by working the mince after it's been worked through a second time. I could change the guard and put a really fine guard on the mincer, but again, that's just another step, and it's not necessary when we can do it by hand, and it's a small batch. So when I'm just doing 1 kilo, it's not a big deal. The remainder 4 kilos of mince is getting turned into sausages, and it will get done through a smaller grind. But for the Kabana, simple. Rolling up some small balls just to make the process of the grinding part really quick, and I will put small balls through the chute down into the grinder and grinding this again to make sure all of the spices are well mixed together. It's pretty simple. If you're buying your mince and you're not mincing it, do it in a bowl, add your seasonings, mix it through really, really well, and then put it back in the refrigerator until you're ready to make your sausages. So I'll just grind this up. Again, it'll just take a couple of seconds to grind up 1 kilo of mince through this machine. And again, it's just a coarse ground. And now it's ready to be put into its casings. I've added, in addition to my mince, I've added some pieces of cheese. My husband requested cheese Kabana, so I have diced up some Edam cheese into small pieces so that it's able to fit in the casing and not also block up the tube that's used, which is called a horn on a sausage machine. So they're quite small, little, tiny, diced up pieces of cheese. This is just a simple bench pressed machine instead of using the larger electric machine, because the Kabana with the cheese in it would get caught in the machine. So I prefer just to do a small batch by hand, and it's not difficult. The casings I use are collagen casings. I don't use natural casings. I do use collagen casings. That's my preference, but you can use whatever you like. For Kabanas, I use a 32 mil. 28 to 32 mil is about the correct size for making a Kabana, which is about the size of a thick sausage, I guess, would be a comparison, but it's not a thin sausage. Anything smaller than that, and you're starting to talk about a Twiggy stick. It's also harder to push a Twiggy stick through that manual machine, definitely. So I'm going to use clear casings because they will get the colour from the smoker. So I don't need to have coloured casings as well, but you can buy coloured casings. You can get brown, you can get red. It's entirely up to you. If you're going to be cooking your Kabanas in your oven, then you can get the red casings. That's okay. You don't have to smoke the Kabanas. So you can make the sausages up just the same way and do it all in an oven and not use a smoker. I'm just happen to be using 2 smokers, a hot smoker and a cold smoker, for cooking today, because I'm doing bacon as well as Kabana. So the Kabana are going into the cold smoker as well as the pork, and I will also be doing pork in the hot smoker as well. So I will just assemble this little machine, which holds up to approximately 1 kilo of mince. It's a little bit less in actual fact, but it's for a small amount. It's not a bad little machine to have. Doesn't take much to use it. One person can use it versus the bigger machine. Just need a pair of gloves, just need to pack the tube and try to make sure you don't have too much air in it because you don't want air in your sausages. Although with cabanas that have been hung, the air's not really a problem. And we will prick the sausages afterwards as well once they've been formed. So I just pack in the meat as best I can, making sure I'm avoiding getting any air pockets. That's why I'm putting it in small bits at a time and then packing it down to make sure I don't have any air in there. And then making sure my surface is nice and clean, adding a little bit of liquid just around the outside, which is just cold water, nothing else. I just add a tiny bit of water before I put the top plunger on, and the plunger's been dipped in water as well, which just makes it easier to slide down the tube. You can use oil or you can use sausage fat as well, is another option. I just find water is okay, it works fine. To work your sausage meat when it's minced, so as it's minced, you simply work it around like you wouldn't be kneading dough. And as you're working it, you'll start to notice the protein sticks to the edges of the bowl as you're breaking the protein down, as you're pushing it around. So that's how sausage mince is different to our normal hamburger mince, because hamburger mince has still got its shape and its protein bonds are formed, whereas once we start pressing it, we break them, and that turns it into the stickier sausage mince instead, which is what we want. I'm just going to pop that back in the fridge. Now, this machine is nice and cold. It's stainless steel. Everything is cold except for the plastic bits, obviously, but the tube itself is being refrigerated. It's a matter of pressing the tube down until you start to see the sausage coming out the end, and then I can put my casing on because I have extruded all the air from that horn now. But I will put my sausage casing, which is a 32 mil clear. And there's two ways the casing goes when you look at the casing. One way it comes off really easily, and the other way it does not. So this way it comes off like a concertina. It just unfolds very easily, and it comes away. The other way it doesn't, which is the back end of it. So the back end just gets tucked back inside itself and it gets put flush up against the machine. And the other side is where it will easily come off as you're forming your cabanas, which is really simple to do on this little machine. So just making sure you don't tie the end off. There's no need to, because again, we want to make sure there's no air at the end of it because we don't want these casings popping. We don't want blowouts. We don't want them exploding when they're in the smoker or in the oven either. We want the casings to stay on but easily come off the horn, which is not difficult, just applying a little bit of pressure with one hand while we press down with the other hand. We will extrude just a little bit at the end. Once I know that the meat is coming out of the end, I'll give it a twist. I don't knot it. I just give it a twist and leave enough space at the end that I can tie it off later on if I want to. But we still need to shape the sausages once this tube of meat has been formed. So then I will just go along and press down and continue to press down until I have all of the meat extruded out and I have my casings filled. And then I just need to make my little individual cabanas. I'm going to make 10 or so smaller ones. I think I make 11 or so in total, smaller ones that are about 100 grams each, so good size, snacking size, so not big ones. Then I just make my links. So making the links is simple. You just need to get to the measurement that you want with wet hands preferably, give them a twist around one way and then the next one you twist away from you. I continue to link down all the way through, pushing out as much air as I can, and then eventually I will cut this all off. And I'm going to be hanging my cabanas and after they've been in the fridge for 24 hours, and so I'm going to be cutting them. So I only need them in links of 2 to be hanging them over the frames or the hooks that are going into the smoker. So each of these links can be linked together as well if they were sausages, but because these are cabanas, I'm hanging them. It's pretty simple to do. It's not hard. Just don't apply too much pressure. Make sure you don't overstuff your casings. It is really easy to do. A little bit of practice and you've got yourself perfect size little individual cabanas. So perfect for snacks, lunches, quick meals, whatever, as a treat, barbecue, snacks, come and go. It's summer. It's time to be having some outdoor eatings, and that's what we're going to be doing. And we're going to prepare these for the smoker. They're going in the refrigerator for the next 24 hours, and I'm going to get work on the bacon. So this is 2 pieces of maple bacon to be. It's not quite there yet. This is still pork belly. So I had 4.5 kilo pork belly prepared at the butcher's for me. They had the rind removed and I trimmed up the fat. It has been curing in the refrigerator, and I have shown this over a period of a couple of videos in the refrigerator, these 2 pieces of pork belly. They've been curing, and they also contain sodium nitrite as well as a lot of salt in order for them to go through the process, and they need now to be washed for 2 hours. They rinse in the sink, and after an hour, I remove all of the water and I replenish it with fresh cold water again, and again let it sit for another hour to draw out the salt. Then they need to be really, really well dried, because when they go into the smoker, if they are wet and the fresh smoke hits these pieces of meat, they absorb a lot of smoke, and it's not pleasant at all. It's overpowering. So your smoked meat does not taste very nice at all. And because I am doing this for a very long period of time, I want to make sure that it is properly smoked. So I'm drying it well. I would normally hang this in the smoker when it's not turned on for up to an hour or so to dry in just air for an hour, but because I am short of time today and I have got both cabanas and pork to do today, or bacon, I will be drying these off by hand as best I can before I put them into my smokers, and I have 2 smokers. The very, very pink area, that's what sodium nitrite does to meat. It preserves the color. So it changes the protein and makes your meat very pink. So you can tell when your meat has been cured enough, because you will notice that pink color of your pork belly. This pork belly, like I said, is going to go into smokers, 1 into a hot smoker and 1 into a cold smoker instead. So I have got them both prepared. There's the pink meat, like I was referring to, where previously it was covered. And when I've cleaned the salt out, you can see that pink meat. So it gives you an idea that your bacon will also have that pink color instead of white or brown color like pork becomes. This is my cold smoker, even though there's a lot of smoke coming out of it because it is warming at the moment, because I am putting a pork into this one as well. So I'm just getting my coals hot. So this one is not gas. It is run by coals, which are heated at the bottom, and apple chips as well for the smoke. So that was me testing all of my vents. I'm going to remove these racks that you quite often find in your upright smokers or barbecues. Removing those upright racks leaves me 1 rack up above, which means I can then, using hooks, hang both my pork belly as well as my cabanas later on. I cook my pork bellies at around about 80 to 100 degrees. Once the door is closed, the oxygen is not going to be in there, and that fire will die back down again and the smoke will stay inside. This is the hot smoker, which is a Komado. This is a family's Komado, and it is over 40 years old. So it is well seasoned, this guy, and nothing smells like the meat that comes out of this thing. It is amazing. And it is always very well received. So I will be doing a hot one as well. Can't control the temperature as well as the other one, but it doesn't matter. I know it cooks for an hour. So this one I have removed. This one has come out of the Komado, and as you can see, its internal temperature is over 65 degrees, which is what you want. So this one can now chill for a very long time until I slice it up. But I will take a little bit off just to show you the color inside it. I'm just going to check all of its dimensions to make sure every part of it is over 65 degrees, to make sure there is no raw pork left in this. It has been smoking for an hour. It is a kilo pork piece of meat, so I do know that this is going to be okay. I just want to be certain that it's okay, because my family will be eating and consuming this. So let's get ready. We're going to cut a little piece off, and I'll show you just how pink this is. It's got a lovely smoked colour on the outside and lovely golden colour. So I'll just take off the cap and we'll just have a look at the colour that the bacon is. Now, even though this is hot smoked and it is technically all cooked, it will still get cooked up in a fry pan. Lovely and pink. It's still going to get cooked up in a fry pan. It's still going to crisp up the fat that is contained. My husband chose this pork belly because of the large amount of fat on this one. Even though I have trimmed it, he did want a larger amount of fat because, you know, it's bacon. And so, you know, he likes bacon fat. So, and also it renders down, and then I can use that bacon fat for other things as well, like potatoes. And that there is my piece of bacon. So this one's from the hot smoker. The pork fat is white, which means it has cooked through, along with the pork itself, which is that lovely pink color, which is what the nitrate causes. And now this one here is my cold one. So this one was cooked in the cold smoker, different color because it's cooked longer. So you can see it's got a much larger amount of smoke deposit on the outside. So this one is a very smoky piece of meat. This is the meat that's all been cut up. This is the bacon ready for packing. So on the right-hand side is the hot smoked bacon. That's the hot smoked there, and this is the cold smoked. So there's not much difference to look at them, but a big difference to the flavour when you taste them. So I split them up separately and packed them separately, and that there is my bacon. 3.5 kilos of bacon from a 4-kilo piece. Next, we will move on to preparing the cabanas to go into the smoker as well, because they've been sitting for 24 hours. Okay, they've been hung. So I've got, again, hot coals down the bottom of my smoker in preparation for their first smoke. So I need to close the door and add some apple chips to them. And we're going to start smoking cabana. 6 to 8 hours I smoke for, and I smoke between 60 and 100 degrees when I'm smoking. So after the second hour, we're going to open it up and have a look-see. And it's already developing that gorgeous maple colour from the smoke. 100 degrees, 4 hours later we'll come back and the temperature's starting to drop because the coals are starting to finish their cooking time, which is fine. A slower, lower temp is okay. I'll add more chips and continue to cook the sausages. I want them to dry out really well, and they're starting to render. The larger pieces that you can see is the cheese. I don't want that to render out, but I do want some of the pork fat to render out, but not too much. That's why all of the ends are reasonably well sealed. So the temperature's now coming all the way down, which means the cabanas are finished. So it'll be time to remove them, chill them down before slicing them, if you can last that long. One didn't survive. My husband tested one straight away. This is what they look like after they've cooled down, and this is what they look like when they're finished. Thanks for joining me. Bye now.